Well, on this show, we absolutely know that most of us were never taught how to talk about death, right? And that silence has cost us a lot. It costs more than we realize, I think. In this episode, we get to speak to Chandra Thomas-Whitfield. She shares what she's learned while covering aging, end of life, and the death positive movement. And the words that we use about death, she says that they shape how we live, they shape how we grieve,
Mhm.
they shape how prepared we are when it actually matters. And so, whether you work in the death positive space like we tend to do, and many of our guests, or you're just somebody navigating loss or aging or the future, this conversation can help you right where you are.
That's right. In this episode, we'll be discussing number one, why the language around death and aging keeps us stuck. And there are words and euphemisms that we're using, and we give you options to say something else.
Yeah.
Number two is how can you start planning for the end of your life or a loved one's life before that crisis is right in front of you, right on top of you, right around you?
Mhm.
And number three is why community and relationships are the most overlooked part of aging well. Chandra Thomas-Whitfield is a journalist whose work explores the human side of aging, dying, and what it means to live fully in the face of both. If you've ever avoided this conversation, the one about death, and you're going to be dying, even for yourself, you need to be aware of this. This episode is a gentle, honest, and practical place to start.
So stay tuned.
Join us.
Hey, everybody, welcome. We are so excited today to be talking with Chandra Thomas-Whitfield. Chandra is the co-host and producer of Colorado Matters, an interview-style daily public affairs show on Colorado Public Radio. She is an award-winning multimedia journalist. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Essence, Ebony, NBC News, NPR, the Huffington Post, etc. In 2020, she completed a Leonard C. Goodman Institute for Investigative Reporting Fellowship with In These Times magazine, during which she hosted and produced the In the Gap podcast about pay inequity and discrimination, how it impacts the lives and livelihoods of Black women in the American workforce. Very important for us to hear about. There was a short-run podcast, but it won a 2021 Clarion Award from the Association of Women in Communications. We're so glad to have you with us today.
So cool. Yes. I am so delighted. I am a lifelong newspaper and radio listener, and I listen to a lot of the Colorado Public Radio news, but I found an article that Chandra wrote, and I immediately emailed her and said, "Tell us more about this end of life piece that you're working on." She has a lot of great stories about aging and dying. And she's also won the 2024 Colorado Association of Black Journalists of the Year Award.
Hmm.
So I am delighted. Please share with us what has inspired you to do this work. And
Well,
thank you
first
for being here.
I have to send the check in the mail for all these accolades, kind of
Woo!
blowing up my head here.
It's Monday. We need it.
Yeah, right.
I know. Well, I always tell people my mantra was "We'll write for food," so that came in a lot of different ways. So wherever I can be published, I got there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love it.
Now
You
I
are a
work
hero
for
of mine.
CPR. Yeah. So, yes. So really a lot of the work that I've explored life and death has been in our series on Colorado Public Radio called Aging Matters. And what we discovered, kind of really by accident, was that those 65 and up is the fastest growing group in our state. And the numbers are expected to continue to explode over the next 20 years. And I also was inspired personally because I am a member of the sandwich generation, if you've all heard that term.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I honestly had not heard the term until I was already in it. Fortunately, I was very surprised. But basically, that is those of us who are caring for, school-age children and also caring for an older adult, usually a parent or loved one. And so, boy, that's been a ride in itself. And so it really just kind of gets you thinking about life and what you want to leave when you leave this
Mhm.
planet. And
That's
so
right.
I will definitely say I've learned a lot in caring for my mom who lives with us. I have two sons and I'm married. My mom is retired, kind of forcibly retired through COVID.
Mm,
And, just kind of dealing with health challenges and loss and life. And it's, it's really got me thinking also about how I want to do this when it's my
Mhm.
turn. And hopefully no time soon, but I think the I think the sooner you think about it and put it in your head and really kind of meditate on what it all means, I think we all will come up with what we consider important and what we want to be our legacy.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
exactly. Yeah, that's the mission we're on here is to have people talking about this. The more we talk about it, the less conflicting it'll be or less trouble it'll be for our loved ones when that
Mhm.
time comes. And so it's really important to talk about it. So I appreciate it. Again, thank you for that perspective. Tell us more about this work that you're doing in this podcast. You said you're going to be doing a podcast later, possibly, or
Oh,
Well,
great.
just the article. Yeah, and
well,
just in
actually,
general.
our show is a daily interview style show that appears on Colorado Public Radio. But this is a segment within my show, which is called Colorado Matters, which
Okay.
comes on at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time here in Colorado, Denver. And also it rebroadcasts in the evenings if you missed it. And it's also available on demand,
Uh,
which makes
un
it a podcast.
yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
Woohoo.
But really in this series, we did talk to a chaplain who does a lot with end of life and just kind of hearing his thoughts and reflections on what people say. In his case, this gentleman based out of Boulder was talking about how he talks to people who have been given a terminal illness and they know that they are going to die soon, and he sits with them and talks to them, and he really just kind of talked a lot about how they are very reflective on relationships. I think that's what stood out to me was at the end of the day, I mean, we spend so much time in our society about, fashion and material things like cars and homes and all that, but it seems like the gist of what I've gotten from a lot of these conversations that this gentleman had, and also just talking to people, I'm in that stage where a lot of people are losing their family members, their
Yeah.
loved ones, their spouses, children. I mean, a bit of everything is that at the end of life, you are going to care about the relationships that you sustain
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how you connected with people. And that's a great thing for me because I like
Mm.
people. I know some people don't, which is why I am a journalist because I like talking to people. I like hearing people's perspectives on things. But
Mm.
I do treasure relationships. I'm from New Orleans, originally, and we are all about family and special times and celebrations. All we need is like a sack of crawfish and some drinks, and we have a party going. So
You're
I
ready.
think
Yep.
I'm glad that I had that experience being from New Orleans because it's kind of one of these places where the family connection, like you before Hurricane Katrina, my entire immediate family lived in the same zip code. Like
Mm.
you don't even see that very often.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, Hurricane Katrina happened in 2005, very devastating. And my grandmother, who was 77 at the time of the hurricane, came to live with me. And that became a very big life experience
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
never imagined living with my grandmother as an adult, but she got to live in my house. And I said, "Oh, I get to say this is my house." But no, my grandmother spent her
Uh,
last years in
mm.
Atlanta with me and also my family. And as horrible and horrific as Hurricane Katrina was for many of us, um, to basically be rendered homeless in a day,
Mm.
your entire immediate community, not just your family, like the entire community, it became a blessing for me to spend those last years with my grandmother, who I'd always been close with. And I just began to treasure that intergenerational experience, which also inspired me
Mhm.
to invite my own mother to come live with us here in
Mm.
Denver, because we have
Mhm.
children, and it's just such a back to the whole situation about the thoughts about relationships, like knowing that my kids will have really strong memories of their grandparents, including my mom who lives with us. Like they
Mm.
have memories. I think those are going to be things that will be comforting to all of us in our last days, that we had that connection. And I was able to have that with my grandparents in New Orleans, and also even when I moved away. So I think that it's really just taught me that it's very important to keep the connections going. And we, just like we're doing today,
Yeah.
use technology,
Mhm.
use social
Mhm.
media, use the phone, group texting. I think that I would really want to encourage those who are concerned about their relationships or quality of them, that you can reach out now.
Yeah.
I
Don't
think
wait.
Yeah.
there's a yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
there's like a
don't
lot of
wait.
belief, yeah, that, oh, it's over, I missed it, I messed up. But I would say what I get from podcasts like you all do and those I've been talking to is it's never too late. Reach
Mhm.
out, just say
That's right.
hello and just see what happens.
Yeah, it's always worth it. It's always worth it. I really appreciate that you've kind of recreated that family connection that a lot of us are missing in this culture to, the
Mhm.
intergenerational family and how important that is. So yeah, thank you for that
Yeah.
reminder. I hope our audience takes that to
Yeah.
heart and really
Well,
does, yeah, reach out.
and it's also I have to intercept here too because, I just got done with a week visiting a friend of mine, and she had a neighbor who was 84, and he passed away 2 years ago. And I have to say, when I lived I this was in Guatemala. When I lived in Guatemala, I loved, like, he'd get up early and ride his bike around, and I knew they were close because they were neighbors, but what I didn't realize is that he really cared for her in so many ways, like, made coffees for her when she was leaving town, and when her father was dying here in the United States, he left her voice messages.
Hmm.
And she and I sat, last Monday, actually, we went for a hike, and we listened to all of his voice
Mm.
messages that he
Wow.
had left for her throughout the last year, because he was like, "Checking in, I'm thinking of you. How's your cat? How's your dad? Your dad doesn't know me, but I'm sending a hug." And I just, I was thinking, I pine for family because I don't have, like, blood family, but I should be doing that too. I should be sending voice messages to friends and saying, "I'm just thinking I love you," and that's and this, I'm a Luddite at heart, but I want to leave voice messages for my friends, which I did this morning on my walk. After I finished, I sat down and I left some voice messages for folks.
That's
So I
great.
appreciate you
Mm.
just said that,
Yeah.
because it's not just
Yeah.
grandmas, but it could be a lovely neighbor who
Mhm.
could also be included in your life that way.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because I have a friend that I talk to pretty often, and she's single and has no children, so she lives on her own.
Mhm.
And she has a good network, but she recently injured herself walking her dog. To
Oh,
your
no.
point, she fell down the hill walking her dog, and that was very jarring for a person living alone, because even getting to
Mhm.
the doctor, you can't drive. She
That's
had
right.
a cast. And so one of the things that touched me was she told me that there was a neighbor who lived near her. I think she lives in a neighborhood, and
Mhm.
he just would just check on her.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
this was pretty recently because it was right before the holidays, like the winter holidays. So she had to go back and forth. She was having to figure out transportation, but this gentleman would go and run, if you need anything at the store, or if
Yeah.
you need me to pick anything
Yes.
up and all that. Well, I hate to, take this in such a heartbreaking turn, but that man died, and she
Mm.
didn't know because
Oh.
she had not heard from
Oh.
him,
Oh,
maybe, so
no.
let's just say maybe February or March. But
Ugh.
at the same time, I look at this man who I don't know, we don't know if he knew he was dying or not, but just the
Mhm.
fact that even in his last days, he
Mhm.
Mhm.
was reaching out to a person, helping them in whatever
Mhm.
way. And she did not find out. I think someone sent her like a funeral notice, so she had missed everything. But I
Mm.
just felt like, wow, how beautiful that that's her memory of him. and
Yeah.
that even to his last day, whether he knew or not, he was offering a helping hand to someone.
Mm.
And I think that's when you think about end of life, you have to say, how do I want people to remember me? I mean, maybe me being a writer, I'm always kind of writing my obituary in my head, like, what do I want people to say? And it's funny
Mhm.
I'm saying this because when I was in school, we in journalism school, we had to, I know this sounds crazy, we had to write our own obituary.
That's
Mhm,
great. Yeah.
mhm.
We
I
had to
love
write
it.
our own obituary. Um, Mine was a little, it's kinda like, I don't know about cause of death, that's a little eerie, but anyway, the whole point of it was for us to think about,
Mhm.
like, what we want people to say, but of course, it was also to learn to write them,
Yeah.
and I used to write them as a journalist as well, which, and you kind of feel this pressure, like, this is the last thing that someone's going to say about this person,
Yeah.
and you wanna
Yeah.
make sure it's accurate, and you wanna make sure it, speaks to the spirit of the person,
Yeah.
and I would just say it really made me think about, like, what I want people to say about me.
Yeah. How do you wanna live your life?
One day,
Yeah. How do you
not
wanna live your
anytime
life?
soon, preferably.
Yeah, I love that. That's really great. Really, really. Yeah, it does make you think about how am I gonna live my life so that people remember, what's the
Yeah,
legacy I
the
wanna
cool
leave,
stuff.
right? Yeah, remember the good
Mhm.
stuff and
Yeah.
not the, "Oh my god,
Ah.
glad that one left." So,
Well, you want people to be honest because I'm
yeah,
sure you've all been to that funeral where you're like,
that's
"Are they
not the
talking about
person
him?"
Yes.
Like, who is that? So,
Yeah, that's
and
true too.
I unfortunately have had to write several for family members. And I try to just stay to the heart of it. But I will also say that my own journey in this, watching my mom, and she has struggled a lot with aging,
Mhm.
mainly because she was very independent all her life, just kind of moved the way she wanted to move and took care of things, which I am grateful for because as a child, you appreciate that. But,
Mhm,
aging comes with a lot of loss,
Yeah,
mobility, health, a lot,
mhm.
losing loved ones. And I will just say my mom is doing better. She is doing better, but I will say in the thick of it, as she's navigated a lot of health issues, it's really made me think about like how she has resisted that experience.
Mhm.
And I've been giving a lot of thought to how I want to have a positive attitude about it. But it's hard, it's
yeah.
hard when you
It's
are
hard.
used to just getting up and going and not
Mhm.
having to depend on a whole bunch of people. And now you
Mhm.
do,
Yeah,
whether it's medicines, whether it's doctor's appointments,
Right.
whether it's
Such yeah.
driving, there's a lot of loss. And so we talked about that on Colorado Matters, the show that I host for Colorado Public Radio. We did a series on grief circles and how some
Mhm.
people need to come together with others to share grief and don't run from that.
Yeah,
Understand that this is a universal experience. I mean, I've seen
Mhm.
people lose pets,
Mhm.
yeah,
children,
yeah.
parents,
Yes.
Jobs.
all of
Oh,
that.
Yeah.
So I
dreams.
think that
Yep.
this is also a time where community is very important. And that's what I've learned from that segment that we did, which was about come together. Sometimes you want one-on-one, but don't underestimate the value of a group setting
Yeah.
where lots of people are sitting in their grief. And you may also be inspired by seeing someone come in the state that they were in when they first got to the group versus when they've had some time pass. And
Mhm.
I don't think we should feel any pressure to just heal or get over it,
No,
but
not at
Right.
just
all.
understand that we're all managing
Yeah,
loss.
yeah,
I have even as a person who is not even, you know, I'm not what I would consider extremely close to retirement age. I've lost several of my closest friends, including my best friend, to different diseases.
Mhm.
Mhm.
One of my best friends was diagnosed with cervical cancer. I had friends die in car accidents,
Mm.
uh, unknown health issues.
Mhm.
I've even seen people, in my past, make the news because of some unfortunate domestic situation, and it's really overwhelming. And grief just really hits you in the wildest,
Mhm.
most random ways. Like you're having a pretty solid day, and then just the
Boom.
slightest
Yeah.
sound or scent or a mention of a
Mhm.
song, anything can just trigger it. And what I've learned in my work covering for, aging matters is just just feel it, just lean
Yeah.
into it and go through it because it does help you heal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're
Mhm.
helping. A lot of us are in a position now to be of service to each other in that way. And I mean, a lot of people who are immigrants right now are also suffering a lot of loss. They are, they need the same kind of support. So,
Mm.
Mhm.
it's a big part of our lives these days if we're paying attention and if we're wanting to
Mhm.
participate in our communities. So, yeah, thank you. That's really all important stuff. So, go ahead, Ana Luisa.
Yeah.
So, okay, you are doing your eldering, aging piece for the
Mhm.
news. What are the biggest challenges that you find in that work? In trying to convey to people that this actually matters?
Honestly, I would say, it really ended up not being as hard of a sell as I thought, because I think that the reality is we all are caring for someone and also caring for ourselves. You mentioned that you said, I don't know, you said something like, "I'm not a spring chicken," or something, but a lot of my friends and colleagues are thinking
Yeah.
about their own mortality. So I think
Mhm.
that while you may say, "Oh, I'm not retired yet," but people are starting to think about that. So I would say the
Hmm.
series actually took off much, faster than I thought because someone is either aging themselves or they're caring for an aging person,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
they're just that kind of person where they wanna think forward about it. But I would say the biggest thing that I'm trying to get across is that we need to talk about it. Like, I've
Yes.
done a lot of
That's
work as a
yep.
journalist on suicide
Mhm.
and gun
Mhm.
violence and domestic violence and all of those things, and I think that we do a disservice by saying, "Well, I'm not gonna talk about it because that's just gonna make someone die, or that's
Right.
gonna that I'm conjuring up, like, death," and it's like, "No." And so I will say for me, what the series has done is, as my mom is aging, having the conversations about what are your final requests? What are things that are important to you? Even down to what would you want in terms of a service? Do you want a
Yeah.
memorial service? Do you want a funeral? Do you
Mhm.
want to be cremated? What's in place? I think that we need to talk about these things because I think what gives me anxiety is the thought that I'll be in the midst of the grief and the loss, and then at the same
Hmm.
time trying to handle a lot of business. It just doesn't seem like the best mix.
Yeah.
So I
That's
think
right.
the more you have those conversations with your loved ones and even yourself, sit down and write out, what do you want? I mean,
Mhm.
it could be even a certain song that you want played that you feel, kind of captures the essence of you.
Yeah.
And so I would say the message that I'm getting from the work is let's talk about our lives. Let's talk about our future in terms of the plans that we want to make. But also, if you're still breathing, if you're still on this side, you still have a chance to embrace life. You still
Yeah.
have a chance
Mhm.
to fix some of those, mistakes, if you will. Um, and I think it's just good to put yourself in a state of peace
Hmm.
as you think about your future instead of anxiety about what I didn't do or what
Yeah.
I didn't
Right.
handle.
Yeah. Get it
And
done.
also, for the children and the parents, don't leave your kids with a whole bunch of work to do. Like, that is not the gift that we want.
Yeah.
We don't want, I just talked to a gentleman who's my new tax accountant as of last week, and he said that his mom passed, and he said we're having to clean out this house, and it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
let's just have the conversation.
Yeah. Do
Mhm.
And
the
if
work
anything,
now.
I'm trying to achieve with this series is
Hmm.
to get people to talk about it, to make plans, stop putting it off, and it's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. It's
It
hard. It's a
is.
lot. And as as you're starting to dive into this, maybe you could speak to this not only for yourself, but maybe what you've heard too. Um, what frightens you? Does anything, as you're thinking about the end of life for yourself, or have you heard from others? Like, what are people
Hmm.
feeling as far as their own fright? What frightens them about going through that end of life? And what frightens you
Um,
about going through the end of life?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, just feeling like there's some closure with, with their whatever relationships. But I would also say, like, I think that there's just a lot of thought about if there were like an unexpected abrupt situation. Unfortunately, like I said, when we think about end of life, many times we're thinking about someone 70, 80, 90. But I will say the kind of one of the challenging parts of social media has been that you're more aware of deaths. Like
Mm,
before people had to call you and it had to be like this big like announcement. But now I'm seeing people 40s, 30s, 50s, I mean, having heart attacks and strokes and
Yeah. Ah,
accidents, and I mean,
yeah.
it's sort of hard to not give yourself a little anxiety, and I'm saying as myself as a parent, like,
mhm.
the main fear I have, at least at this stage of life, is what would happen to my children if for some reason I weren't here. I mean, I'm married, but things happen. I've heard of situations where parents were both in a car and
Yeah.
something happened. We've had a lot of situations like that recently in Colorado. Even a state legislator recently passed in a car accident. So I think for me, just the fear of not being prepared
Mhm.
and also
Mhm.
wanting to make sure that those who are here are covered and it's kind of giving me a little anxiety about like what would happen if I were not here.
Yeah.
But we try to stay healthy, we try
Mhm.
to be present. But again, back to that discussion about conversation.
Yeah.
This is why we should all sit down and write out wishes,
Mhm.
do
Yeah.
a will, do a trust, all of those things. Do your estate planning to at least do what you can to cover your loved ones if you were to pass.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, very important.
It is important. So, when you get really anxious, how do you manage that anxiety? How do you keep yourself resourced when you're spinning into those thoughts?
Or even just overwhelmed by work.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I just, well, I do have those moments, but I am a spiritual person, so I do pray and ask for peace and I ask for protection, and and then there's just kind of a part of you that knows, what is meant to be will be,
Mm,
and so if that, I've seen many people navigate this. I don't envy them, but I've seen, one of my big stories that I did long before I worked at CPR was when I worked for Atlanta Magazine and I did a series on suicide, and that is a
mhm,
very, very complex topic. I had the benefit of interviewing former Surgeon General Dr. Satcher, who worked under Bill Clinton as former president, and he was very adamant that when suicide does take place, that we not try to guess or speculate on everything that led to that moment. I mean,
yeah,
because we're always looking for like a note or like a specific incident, like, oh, this happened and that's why, and he was very adamant. And that's always stood with me for years. His conversation about don't um don't try to assign a meaning like, oh, so and so broke up with their girlfriend, so that must, you don't really know. And he said,
yeah,
mental health is such a complex thing. I also changed my language after that story. Instead of saying committed suicide, which is
Yep.
just is so ingrained in our heads, like I've
Mhm.
heard that my entire life. Just changing the language to died by suicide,
Mhm.
and because committed, as at least those who are advocates in that space say it's it's usually in the vein of a sin or a
mhm,
crime,
yeah,
and we
yeah,
want to take that stigma off of that.
Mhm.
So I have changed my language and say so and so died by suicide, or took their own life,
mhm,
which it may seem like tomato, tomato, or semantics, but for
yeah,
No,
those in that
I'm with you.
community, and I
Yep.
mean, it's really hard because it
yeah,
is so ingrained in our head to say committed, like it's almost like it is almost like the phrase in itself.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I've tried to, be a beacon of change in the language that I write in my work, but also, again, by doing this series, Aging Matters on Colorado Public Radio, we've gotten such feedback. Like, thank you for talking about this. Thanks for talking about my experience. And the reality is, again, people are doing this. People are living longer.
Hmm.
So that end of life is being stretched out, but it's also creating a different life for those who are living longer
Yeah.
because you're living longer with chronic health issues. And it becomes a kind of a quality of life topic as well. So I will just say I've had a lot of challenges as an African American woman navigating the healthcare system with my mom,
Hmm.
and it's almost like I've always covered uh, statistics and data and studies, and they talk about the medical industry and how it has a lot of systemic flaws. And I will say all of those statistics have come to full view in my life in understanding how many people navigate the health system very
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
And I've had to, raise my voice quite a bit to speak up on, ill treatment, medical mistakes, uh, just not servicing the patient. And so, again, these are things that I'm learning through my mom. But I've told my husband, I was like, look, if I'm ever incapacitated, I'm letting you know you cannot just trust that the medical professionals
Yes.
are just doing everything that they can. Sometimes it depends on what they perceive of you and what you're willing to accept.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's so
I hate to say that because there's been some phenomenal people too who
yeah.
have
Yeah.
stepped up and spoken up. But I do think that you do need to talk to your loved ones
Hmm.
before you're sick, before
Yeah.
you have any
Yeah.
illnesses,
Yeah.
and talk to them about advocacy because it
Yeah.
is critical at
Yeah.
your end of life. And
So true.
it can make a
Yes.
difference between you having an end of life or not
Yeah.
at
Right.
a
Yeah.
certain time.
Yeah. So important. Yeah. I'm so glad you're doing that work. Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, we're close to the end. Do you have anything you wish we'd had asked you and that we didn't get around to that you'd like to share?
I know you asked to share like some quotes and things.
Yeah.
I would say the mantra that I live by is the famous quote, be the change you seek in the world.
Yeah.
And I do think that as you have these conversations about end of life, it can feel like it's just something beyond your control. And to some large degree it is. Like we don't get to necessarily decide that. Obviously, we have the benefit of medical technology that has helped us. But at the end of the day, we don't get to decide the day or hour that we are not going to be here. So I would just encourage people to have the conversation, talk to your loved ones about their wishes, your wishes, talk to them about advocacy and what you want, but also don't think it's too late. I
Hmm.
don't care what age you are, you can try
Yeah.
to repair relationships, to make relationships better. And that's something that I'm hoping to do myself is to look back at these last years with family members and loved ones,
Hmm.
and just remember, be the change that you seek in this world. And
Yeah.
also my alma mater, which is Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, is find a way or make one. That's our motto, and I
Like that.
live by that all the time. And so I would just encourage everyone to empower yourself
Yeah.
and don't run from it, lean into it, and I think you will benefit at the end of life.
Yeah. Thank you
Love
very
it.
much. Very much.
Ah,
Yeah.
you're inspirational. So I love
Yeah.
it.
Thank you so much.
Ah,
Appreciate that.
I get my
Yes.
daily Oprah affirmations. Yes, I used
Perfect.
to be a big Oprah Winfrey Show fan, so
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. We'll put notes in the podcast notes that will for people to get in touch with you or know more about what you're doing, the work you're doing. And thanks so much for the work you're doing. It's so
well,
important.
thank you
Yeah.
Yes.
so much
Thank
for
you, Chandra.
you all are leading the conversation. So you go right into my point is that you're putting it in front of people, and I do think it's going to make a difference for a lot of people.
Oh,
That's going to, I mean, because it's not a do-over situation, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Now,
Thanks
I
so
have
much.
heard some people say that they did have some do-overs. That's interesting. I'm sure you all have talked about
Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But
Yes.
at the end of the day, it's not a dress rehearsal. This is the
No.
real thing. So let's all be ready. So thank you so
I
much
love
for
it. Thank
hosting
you,
me. I get to
Chandra.
answer
Yes.
questions instead of asking them for a
Woo!
change.
That was
I
so
love
fun.
it. I love
All
it for
right.
you.
Well, thanks so much. And thanks
All right.
everybody
Thank
for
you all
joining
so
us.
much.
Take care.
Thank you. Adios.
Conversations about the end of life.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Charles Heaston, the composer of the original music you are listening to now.
And of course, thanks to you, our audience, and all of our amazing guests. Please come back next week for another great episode. Share this with your friends, family, and community. We hope you will subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack. Each guest's additional information will be found in the podcast notes. And of course, if you have a good end-of-life story to share, please reach out. We are always eager to hear from you.